Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Cool. NT, you're recording? Cool. All right. Hi, everyone. It's Chris Katoya with the cadCAD Foundation, and welcome to our community call today on November 2nd. We'll be giving updates on how we're doing a little bit of change to the format for community calls going forward, the bounties and proposal program, and a status update on cadCAD reference development with Emanuel Lima, who's been leading development there. So on the agenda, we'll be covering some updates from the infra admin working groups and the core tech working group. So as far as the community call format updates, we're shifting towards focusing these calls on more status updates. And then we'll be moving more of the sort of community projects spotlights to a symposium spotlight format for a different program entirely. We'll be eager to get submissions in from the community, and we'll be organizing those calls separately from community calls in the future. So we're very looking forward to hearing from everyone about their projects and what they'd love to show to everyone else. Yeah, we're eager to have everyone submit what they've been working on, and we'd love to feature that. All right. So we'll go over quick updates from the infra admin working groups. First is the cadCAD wiki, and then bounties and proposals. And lest I forget, the infra admin working group meets every Tuesday in the Discord at 5 p.m. UTC. So as far as the cadCAD wiki, which is what we're building in the GitHub as a way of making it very clear for all the different topics that might be related to modeling that you might want to do in cadCAD and documentation on how to use cadCAD. We're testing right now some workflows in Discord forums and how that's going to interplay with the GitHub as a way of sort of instantiating the ability to develop issues, close issues, manage that, and drive the discussion forward in a somewhat formatted way to be able to do that big heavy lift as a whole group here together on all that documentation. And for the bounties program development, we'll just cover the history real fast of where we've been with that, and then I'll give an update where we are today. So 2 years ago, we did some early trials. We basically found that it was taking us more time to write bounties and try to help people with completing their bounties than it would have taken for some of the more senior members in the community to just do the work themselves. So obviously that wasn't very effective or efficient. And so what we learned was the project probably wasn't ready at that time to really open the floodgates, if you will, for mass contribution. And we learned a little bit more about the administration of doing bounties and the work involved there. And so what we've decided going forward now is kind of doing a little bit of gatekeeping around who will be participating in the funds granting processes of our community at this time. So we'll just have a way of saying like, hey, you're a known community member, you know what you're doing, you're good to go. It's just a very light touch point. It's not going to be a huge application or anything like that. This is not going to impede people from being able to participate in proposing ideas, socializing those ideas, and finding champions within the cadCAD community to try to make those initiatives happen. We want to encourage all of that as possible. We also realized, hey, we need to reduce the friction in onboarding into the cadCAD community. That's partly why we're doing the cadCAD wiki work as well as in making the investment we've done in cadCAD reference to just build a framework that's a lot more newcomer friendly. So where we are right now is we're currently designing the bounty and proposal program in collaboration with OSS Grants. You can find them at ossgrants.com. The bounties will be paid in XDAI, managed with Gnosis Multisig, and it's building on the work that I discussed in previous calls that OSS Grants was doing with TEC and NumPy. We're looking to have a application process where we'll be dog fooding a lot of this ourselves before releasing it, um, where we just want to make sure that known contributors, just identifying them makes the pay scaling of what those bounties should be a little bit easier, more straightforward. And if we know the audience to target for specifications, that's a lot more straightforward on the administration side as well. And eventually, um, we would be interested in playing around with other systems that are identifying and maybe attesting to different skills across different domains. And so then we can organize that in the future. We're not worrying about that at the moment, but that is something that we are playing with. And we'll be starting all this with a backlog of bounties when we do kick off the program. And then trying to start encourage the community to come around to building proposals, and probably starting with a heavy emphasis on bounties as sort of a demonstration of what a later emphasis on proposals could look like. So, some open questions and issues on our end that we need to do to fulfill this is contribution guidelines and documenting that both just in general for the code base, but also as part of these programs. We'll have to be setting up some workflows in this, and this will probably be dealing with issues, repos, and setting up teams for people that are identified and verified as what we're going to be calling active members of the community, uh, as ways for identifying people that will be interacting directly with the cadCAD Foundation when it comes to discussing payments and granting for bounties and proposals. And another thing that we'll be toying with um, is if there should be a process for raising additional funds for specific proposals outside of uh, just a general treasury that the cadCAD Foundation has at the moment. Cool. So we'll be moving over to the core tech side of things. They meet every 2 weeks on Wednesdays, 5 p.m. UTC. So just at a very high level, where we are in the roadmap, we've done a minimum viable thing in order to be able to define and run cadCAD models. So that's been very, very exciting. Where we are in terms of chaining of blocks is single input, single output. This has enabled us to be able to get started, start dog fooding these things. And now we're moving into the additional work required to make this framework useful in practice and be able to use it in practice. And I want to hand the floor to Emmanuel to talk a little bit about where we've gone on the journey with blocks and additional updates from there.
Right. Hello, everybody. So about blocks. Right now, we have the initial implementation of blocks, and it's already functioning. Like Chris said, we can run end-to-end models as long as the blocks on those models are linear chains of the blocks. And the blocks themselves are CISO blocks. So CISO blocks are when the blocks accept just one point and they output another point, right? So it's a single input, single output kind of block. And we now have, nowadays, we have the ability of chaining those kinds of blocks. If we chain a CISO block with another CISO block, the only check that is made, what the block has to do is that the output of the previous block must be the same type as the input of the following block. And by doing that, you can concatenate all the blocks, and then you have a chain of CISO blocks. And that is enough to run some basic models, but we want to go above that. We want to go further, right? So in order to go further, we are working right now, and this is the feature, the most complex feature we are working right now, the feature of MISO blocks. So MISO are multiple input, single output blocks, meaning that a block that is MISO can accept a arbitrary number of inputs. Because remember that a block is basically a Python function with extra machinery, extra functionality. So a meso block is basically a Python function that accepts any number of points of a certain space and can output a single point on any space, right? So by doing meso blocks, we are going to augment the possibilities and the complexities of the models we can run on cadCAD reference, right? After we stabilize and we launch meso blocks, we are going to work on memo blocks. That is another further generalization of the concept of blocks. So memo blocks are multiple input, multiple output, meaning we can accept multiple points as input, and we can return multiple points of different spaces as output of a certain block. And the work on memo blocks is highly dependent on a new feature that has come out in Python 3.11 that is called variadic generics. So variadic generics are basically the idea, or rather, the functionality of the Python's type system and typing library as well, that the generics of on the return type of a function, for example, can vary in number. So, for example, nowadays you can have a type or a collection that varies over just one type. So it's just varies over just one generic type. But with variadic generics, you can have a type that varies over any number of generic types, and that's what we are going to use to actually construct multiple output blocks. So we are relying on Python 3.11 to build and to implement memo blocks in the future. On another note, we are also working on composition tooling. That's basically a form of DSL, domain-specific language, to pipe different blocks. So right now, as I said before, we can make linear piping of blocks or chain of CISO blocks. But the idea is that we will be able to make chaining of, like arbitrary chaining of blocks or pipeline. But not only of CISO blocks, but meso and memo blocks as well. So we can chain blocks in parallel, in serial, however we want, just making sure that the input of a block is the same, has the same space of the output of the previous block. That's basically the only law that has to be always obeyed. After that, there is also much further future work on orchestration tooling, where we're going to work on more complex ways of queuing dynamics. And the dynamics is the set of all of the pipelining of the blocks, where we start with a certain space and we end with the same space. So we will work on various orchestration tooling to increase the developer experience, to better the developer experience when writing large models. So that's it. Do you have a next slide?
Yep. Nope. That's it. If there's anything else you'd like to share, Emanuel, please do so. Yeah.
There is another point. We are working on a new contributing guideline for new contributors to cadCAD. I'm working that document this week. We are going to change the development, the contribution workflow for cadCAD. It's going to be a workflow heavily dependent on automated testing, on forking, and pull requests. As it is expected of an open source project that is growing its community. So when we have like a contributor document finished and the CI/CD pipelines in place, I intend to present this also to the community as well. But the idea is that we are going to have a quality assurance pipeline for new contributors no matter where the contributors come from. If from any part of the community, we will have to pass the quality assurance pipelines so that the PR can be accepted.
Wonderful. That's great. Yeah, looking forward to hearing more about the progress on that in next month's community call. If there's anyone that has any questions, I'm happy to take them at this time. Cool. Lovely. I think that wraps up our community call for this month. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thanks, everyone.